I would have never thought, after judging myself for so many years, I would go into a sport that does the same thing, judges you, but in a whole different aspect. All the girls on my team, the judges on stage, they never once said a bad thing about me. It was always so encouraging, and you pick and choose who you want to surround yourself with. Like, I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I go to a bodybuilding gym. I'm on a bodybuilding team. I surround myself with people who understand. And if they don't understand, that's not an immediate reason to just not be around them. You can educate them. I've just learned not everyone's going to like you, and you're just going to have to deal with that. If you haven't given them a reason to like you, it's most likely their insecurities projecting on to you.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Impact Agent Podcast. As we unpack this episode, we're going to provide our listening audience with a visual of this amazing transformation of somebody that went from being insecure, depressed, having eating disorders, wearing baggy clothing, not wanting to show any part of her body, to somebody who walks out on a stage in a bodybuilding competition wearing next to nothing and exuding confidence. Ready? Ready to rock and roll? Is that action? All right.
Okay. That's right.
All right.
Absolutely. Go. Go.
Hello, everybody. It's Jason Will with
Go.
This is a real estate podcast. But we talk about leadership, personal growth, and becoming the best version of yourself. Leadership, check 1, 2, check 1, 2. Growth, best version of yourself.
Go.
So this is a real estate podcast. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited about this episode. I think it has seriously, legit life-changing power for a lot of young women, but probably a lot of young men. I think there's a lot of men and boys that are going through insecurity issues. I think we just all have insecurity issues. But Kenzie, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Give us a little background on you. Who are you? Where do you come from? How old are you?
So I was born in Florida, and then we ended up moving when I was pretty young. So I've practically spent my whole life in Alabama, but I am 17 years old. I turned 17 in June, and I come from a long history of just insecurities that have grown into something bigger, but more better. They have just shifted over the years, and it's so crazy. So I'm very happy to be on here to share my journey with everyone.
Yeah, so you've gone through a major transformation, and we're going to unpack that for the audience, and it's going to be very, very relatable. Really, honestly, not that this podcast has a massive reach, but this is something that I think millions of people struggle with. But when did your personal battle with insecurity begin?
It really all started in middle school, which sounds very cliche because every middle schooler, every preteen is going to have some form of insecurities, but mine just never really went away. And I think part of it is I never made the effort to change in that way, but not necessarily change, but just better myself in a way. And I guess really when it came out of middle school, I struggled with depression all of middle school. And then about freshman year, I started just clinging on to food as a safety feature in a way. Food was just so comforting, and it still is, truly. But it was all I relied on, all I thought about. I circled my whole life around food. And with having depression, it was literally the only way I could get serotonin. And I would just eat and eat and eat to the point where it was I literally could not stop. It got to the point where if I went grocery shopping, the moment those groceries were in the fridge, it's all I thought about. I was I want to go eat all those right now.
And this is junk food type stuff, pretty much?
Literally anything. The moment I got my mind on it, I was I have to eat it, because I was so terrified it wouldn't be there within the next hour. It wouldn't be there for tomorrow for me to eat. I was so concerned about that.
But were you chubby? Would you describe yourself as a chubby kid in middle school, or did this?
About freshman year is when I started gaining a lot of weight. I gained about 50 pounds, I would say, just from always relying on food. And my relationship with food used to be so unhealthy, and I just felt terrible. And there was really nothing anyone could do. And I ended up struggling with binge eating disorder for about 2 years.
So what do you think the sources of insecurities were as a middle schooler? You just think like there's way more pressure to look a certain way? Did you start feeling that pressure of conforming to a certain body type? Were those pressures there in middle school?
Most definitely. I think it was just because of who I surrounded myself with, and I would always look at other girls from my school and I would just think they were so much smaller and petite in my mind, and I was like, I would literally just do anything to be that skinny. And it's so crazy because I look back at pictures of me from middle school and I was like, I wasn't even big. Like, I looked like those girls. I don't know why my brain just wired differently into thinking I didn't look like that, but in reality I did. And I did look like those girls.
You were basically, we hear this saying a lot in our real estate trainings, to stop judging your insides in relation to somebody else's outside. So what you see outwardly in their appearance. But like when you looked in the mirror, you saw somebody that was overweight, and that wasn't necessarily the case.
Right, exactly. I think body dysmorphia is so real because I feel like that word gets like thrown around a lot and people overuse it and they don't really like understand how big of an effect that really has on you. It was just a whole way your mind looked on like your insecurities and then looked at other people.
Did this make you introverted? Like, did you spend a lot of time inside? Were you not very social?
I was still social, but when it came to be about like summer, I would wear like very high-waisted like Nike shorts to the pool, and I would not take them off. Mm-hmm. I was terrified of other people seeing the version I saw of me.
I think you probably had no idea that this transformation was even possible. So what I want to do is take people on your specific journey from basically being somebody who hid from every opportunity to showcase or exhibit who they really felt they were, really kind of living out loud and being proud of your body and being, secure in your own skin and all these things. So freshman year rolls around, you're 50 pounds overweight. What happens next?
I think it really mostly started sophomore year. I was in a 2-year-long relationship at that time. So at that point I was like, oh, I don't care about my weight. Like, he's comfortable with me. He likes how I look. We're okay. So then I just relied on that. And I guess just kept eating and eating. And then when people started making remarks about my weight, I fell back onto food again because it just made me feel good. It felt so good to eat and eat and eat and eat. And then I started just struggling with binge eating disorder to the point where I literally could not make myself stop eating. And some people look back on that and they're like, it's not that hard, just stop eating. Or it's not that hard, just eat. And it was like such a mental toll. Like all these things would go through my brain of like, what if it's not there tomorrow? What if somebody else eats it? What if it's not as good as it is tomorrow than it would be right now? I just relied on food too much. I relied on that on being my only source of happiness. I wasn't happy with myself. I didn't really have that many friends. No one really understood what was going on. They didn't know I was battling through it. And no one really realized I was so unhealthy until like present day when I'm the talk of the town going on stage. And then they look back and they're like, whoa. And then when I was overweight and people started to notice and I was being told like, oh, these people are calling you fat, like they're calling you chubby, it became like that point where it was like, I want to change. I just don't know how. I don't know where to start. And then sophomore year rolls around and that's when COVID hit and we were all stuck in quarantine. And I was just going absolutely crazy being locked in the house to the point where I made myself start going out and just started off as a walk. And then it started as jogging every morning. And then it started as going for a run. And I've always learned to never set unrealistic standards. Like, oh, I want to drop 20 pounds like this week. It was always, if I can just lose 5 pounds, I can do it again. If I can do it one time, I can do it again.
Binge eating. You said you just eat and eat and eat. Would you just eat and eat and eat in a single sitting? Like just eat a ton of food and then you don't eat for a while? Or does binge eating mean you might eat for an hour straight? I mean, what does it mean?
It was mostly just eating a lot in one sitting and then maybe like an hour passes and I have nothing to do. And then I was like, food. I would eat when I was bored. I would eat when I'm happy. I would eat when I'm sad. It was just like my emotions didn't really stop how I felt. Like people would make the remarks about my weight and I would go eat again. You would think like if someone said that, I would want to make a change. But then it really got to the point where I picked up the hobby of just jogging when quarantine hit. And I started liking how it made me feel. And I started setting these little baby steps into my health. And I just wanted to look like the other girls so badly. And the more I ran, the skinnier I got, the less I ate, the more malnourished I was, and the more weight I would drop so quickly. And I was seeing these results, and then that's when people started calling me too skinny. And then that's where my whole mental health spiraled again. I was like, well, this is what you wanted. I did exactly what society told me to do. Not eat as much, lose the weight, do all the cardio, and somehow I felt so much worse than being 50 pounds heavier. And at that point, I've lost about 20 pounds, and I started feeling like so much worse. And around that same time is when my mom hired a personal trainer to help her with her arthritis. And I start going to these workouts with my mom, and I realize the coach has an entire bodybuilding team. And therefore, I start going to these workouts, and the trainers would talk about me, and it made me so nervous. And then one day they come up to me and they're like, we want you to join your team. And I'm sitting here a bit chunkier than I am now. And I was like, why? Why do you want me? I don't look anything like these people. And they were like, but you could. You don't have to. We want you to look like you. We want you to make your own progress, and we want you to look like you. And I was like, huh. And I denied it at first. I never thought in a million years I could be a bodybuilder or look like any of the girls that are on my team now. And then maybe about like 2 weeks after they asked me the first time, I finally was like, yeah, sure, we'll give it a try.
Well, I want the audience to get like a full picture of this. So, you know, you told us about summertime and whether you're going to the pool or going to the beach or whatever and wearing baggy clothes and never showing too much skin. When COVID hit, you guys took the quarantine very seriously. You were saying you and your mom have some historical family issues, hereditary health issues or whatever. So you had to really take the quarantine seriously. But when the quarantine hit, did that just give you an excessive amount of time to think? Was there a catalyst that said, I'm going to go out and start trying to run and jog or walk and jog 2 miles? Was there something like an event or something?
It was mostly just looking in the mirror again, realizing I don't look like other people, and then just boredom. And I realized like eating when you're bored is not the solution we need to take. I just wanted to pick up more hobbies to get rid of the bad habits I had. So that's when I started picking up jogging around quarantine. And I couldn't bear to be in the house all day. That drove me crazy.
Yeah. So this quarantine for you in a lot of ways was a blessing. But when you got out there, I mean, this was so bad that when you got out there to exercise, it was either before the sun came up or after the sun went down, so you wouldn't be recognized or seen.
Right.
That's where your mindset was. It was that bad. And when you went to the gym with your mom, was it not early in the morning when there wasn't very many people in the gym?
It was about in the afternoon, about 12 p.m. And I was just so nervous because these people know how to lose weight the healthy way. I was doing it completely wrong, and I was just honestly so scared of change. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was still really insecure with myself, and I thought these other girls and like the coaches were going to see my insecurities and think the same of me.
Yeah, but instead they saw something in you and they wanted to bring you out of your shell. And it sounds like you just got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right, exactly.
And yeah, then you're like, well, I'm cooped up in the house all day. We're doing virtual school. I got to get out of the house. You get out of the house, start walking. The walking turns into jogging. That turns into 5 pounds down here and there. And then you start feeling better about yourself and your clothes start fitting better and your self-esteem starts increasing. And you're just like, wow, there's really something to this.
Right, exactly. Once you take the first steps, after just a day of doing smaller things to better yourself, you will feel it. And then if you get out of it another day, it starts to get easier. But the hardest part is that you got to do it every day. But it gets easier. And the feeling after doing it for about a week, you start to love it and you start to see a difference within that just 1 week in your mental health and your physical health and the way you look. You can just feel it all over. And it's such like an underrated feeling, in my opinion. And I think if more people could feel this feeling, they would stop making excuses and they would start doing more to better themselves like I did.
Yeah, you talked about, off mic, you were talking about how a lot of these, your peers at school, they just had the genetics to be thin and have what maybe you would describe as a perfect body type, perfect body image.
Right.
But you had to work for it. And
right.
because you had to work for it, it means so much more to you.
It does. It truly does. And it's just more rewarding in my sense, because I would have never thought, after judging myself for so many years, I would go into a sport that does the same thing, judges you, but in a whole different aspect. When bodybuilding, all the girls on my team, the judges on stage, they never once said a bad thing about me. It was always so encouraging. And that's what I found so crazy. So when I looked back at like the girls that had these amazing genetics to me, I just wanted to be them so bad. And then the moment I started getting into this, one of the hardest things was like, no one's going to understand what you're doing. So they're going to hate on it because they don't understand. They're not going to respect it if they don't understand. And that was another big challenge in bodybuilding. So obviously I had a lot of people would say like, just stereotypical, like, girls don't need to be in the gym, girls don't need to be that big. And I'm like, well, that's not the goal. I don't want to be big. I don't want to be small. I want to be healthy. I want to feel good. I want to be confident. That's all I want. Fitness is whatever you make it, truly. And when I started doing this, I thought it was so crazy because the girls I thought had the perfect body, they would end up coming to me and they were like, I want to look like you. I want to put on some weight. And I was like, whoa, like I've never had anyone say they want to look like me and they want to do what I do. I've always felt like such an outcast and I've always wanted what they had.
Yeah. So, I mean, you become a leader, right? You become somebody that other people look up to. And I'm sure now you feel a responsibility to a lot of these young women who are reaching out to you on social and going, hey, I either want to be healthier or I want to lose weight and I don't know where to start. And so it's really, really powerful. But I wanted to talk about, I want to get onto this journey of you training for a year and the discipline that took. But how did you prepare yourself mentally for the hate? Do you think you were just conditioned to deal with it since you started dealing with it at such a young age? Or, I mean, you say it so calmly now, like it's just a part of the process. Like when people don't understand something, they hate on it. I don't know. It just comes like, were your defense mechanisms always so natural, or how did you condition your mind to know that this was coming and just say, hey, and kind of brush it off?
Well, one of the bigger things in gaining confidence in this whole process was just you pick and choose who you want to surround yourself with. Like I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I go to a bodybuilding gym. I'm on a bodybuilding team. I surround myself with people who understand. And if they don't understand, that's not an immediate reason to just not be around them. You can educate them. But I've just always learned not everyone's going to like you. And you're just going to have to deal with that. If you haven't given them a reason to like you, it's most likely their insecurities projecting on to you. And all you can really do is just hope and pray they get over that themselves. Because I've had a lot of people who have said really nasty things about me behind my back and they didn't think it'd come back to me. I've had a lot of posts made about me, but they're the same people who will shoot me a DM at like 12 o'clock in the morning when no one else is around. And they're like, hey girl, I want to make a change. And even though they've said all those terrible things about me, and I know they said it, they don't know I know, I'm still going to help them because maybe that would help their mental health. Because I'm very guilty of when my mental health was bad, I was a bad friend. I was a bad daughter. I was a bad student. But the moment I got better myself, I'm a lot nicer. I'm a better friend. I'm a better daughter. I'm a better student. So your mental health plays a massive role in that. So I've never really denied anyone of help because they've said nasty things about me. And that's something my mother has always taught me. When unhappy people say unhappy things. So I've always prepared myself because I was an unhappy person who would say unhappy things, and I would project my insecurities onto other people. So I've always tried my best to really just stay calm, because frankly, whatever they say about me now is really not going to matter within a week or 20 years. I'm not going to spend 20 minutes really upset about it, yet I'm going to do what I can to help them so they can better themselves and be a better daughter or son or student.
Yeah, it's just want to remind everybody listening that Kenzie's 17 and saying a lot of things that it takes people, sometimes maybe they're 37 or 47 before they realize some of the truths that you're sharing with us today. And off mic, I just did want to mention this. I mean, you said that you still have or know plenty of people that have eating disorders, that are depressed, that are dealing with mental health issues in your high school, and you're choosing to, you got two approaches to this. Number one, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're going to remove yourself from those peer groups that they're doing things that are not serving you, not serving your mental health, not serving your future, not serving your goals, but you're willing to educate those that want to make a change.
Right.
But if they're not, you don't want to, they're not going to be negative in your world or be a hater or bring something into your world that's going to affect your mindset.
There's a massive difference between people who are struggling with mental illness and that's why they act the way they act. And then there's plain just hateful people. And I'm very good at spotting them out considering I've been through some mental health issues. But people who come to me and wanting to make a change, I like them. I will help them. Whatever you've said about me in the past, it's gone. We are not beefing. I'm going to help you. But people who deliberately comment on my post or talk about me to my friends where they know I'm going to find out, make posts about me, just all that, and they don't want to make a change. I'm not going to help someone who doesn't want to make a change. You know what I mean? There's a massive difference between there, and those are the people I don't want to surround myself with, or people who just don't have some of the same discipline as me, so it's kind of hard to be their friend. Like if they want to go out every weekend, I can't, because bodybuilding has been a massive schedule for food, and it's helped me a lot in a routine. I'm a big routine person, so I'll eat every 2 hours and I'll eat my meal preps, so I don't really go out to dinners. It did take an effect on my social life, but the people that I correctly choose, they're still here. They are starting to understand. They're supportive.
Yeah. Quick question. This is kind of a little bit of a bunny trail, but do you read every comment on Instagram or a TikTok post?
I do. And most of them are extremely supportive, but then there's always going to be that unhappy person. I actually ended up posting a TikTok with my trophy after my show, talking about how I was just so excited that I won my first bodybuilding show. And most of the comments, because I've posted most of my bodybuilding journey on social media, and everyone was so supportive. And then bam, the moment I won, I don't see any muscle definition. If it's that easy, I could do it. Just so many mean comments the moment you've succeeded. The moment everyone's been waiting for and everyone's been supporting you, the moment you win, out of nowhere, all these nasty comments come. And I think it's a jealousy thing. But I did end up deleting the TikTok because the comments were just getting out of hand. Everyone was just arguing in the comments. It wasn't just it was just a negative comment section. So I just deleted the whole thing. But then later on, I did end up posting more about winning, and the comments were a bit nicer. I just think it's more of a jealousy thing of where the comments come from, because the people that are jealous of you don't want to see you succeed. And quite often that happens with people who do support you too. They just don't want you to succeed. And when you spot that out and you distance yourself from them, it makes your journey a lot easier, picking and choosing your support group. And a lot of people aren't as blessed as I am. And I have an amazing support group. I have amazing friends. I have an amazing bodybuilding team, an amazing coach, an amazing family who support. But I do know a bunch of people where their families aren't as supportive. They think that what I do, they slut shame it because of the bikinis. They don't want their daughters going up on stage doing that. And it just sucks because the more their parents, like the people who are supposed to support you like the most, they're sitting there shaming you about it and something you want to do, which plays a massive toll on your confidence. And that's why I'm really thankful for my support group. But even when you don't have that support group, I think it's really important. You need to find that confidence in yourselves. You're not going to go against your parents' wishes, but you're going to do what's best for you. If you want to get out and go to the gym and do what I do, like the bikini bodybuilding, go do it. If it makes you happy, go do it. You're not going against your parents' wishes. You're not doing anything to get back at them. You're doing what's best for you. And it'll slowly start building your confidence when you simply just tune out all the bashing, because there's always going to be people that bash you. Mm-hmm. But the people without as in a supportive group as I do, I understand it's a lot harder. But the moment you just turn it off and you're in your zone, confidence will start stacking and stacking and stacking, and you'll just feel so much better about yourself.
Yeah, so you're essentially building up a confidence level that, I guess for lack of a better word, is kind of indestructible. I mean, you read those comments, some of them, like I know, like if comments on TikTok, for example, get very sexual with women in the gym, and they'll be like, oh, hope your top breaks or something. I hope that zipper comes undone. You know, it's just stupid stuff. You take it with a grain of salt, right? It's not, and a lot of times these people that are hating on you, it has nothing to do with you. It's something to do with them.
Going on with them, exactly.
Yeah. So let's dive into this, because let's address the people that weren't slut shaming or being overly sexual or just hating. They were saying, oh, this is so easy. Anybody could do it. So let's talk about a day in the life of Kenzie on this year-long journey to that stage. What does your typical day look like?
When I read those comments and I saw a bunch of like boys saying, oh, if it's that easy, I'm going to do it. And a bunch of people were like, you must have had like zero competition. And I ended up like responding being like, well, I'll join you in the next one. Yeah. And I just thought, like, I click on their page and it's someone, I'm like, you have no room to talk. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm not being rude or anything. It's just like, you really have no room to talk, because if you're not going to make the change, and nobody knows, like, I've lost 40 pounds. It's not something I just go around talking about. So when I saw the comments and they were like, oh, it's so easy, like, must be nice to have these genetics, I was like, yeah. You're lying, right? You're crazy, right? Like, this isn't genetics. I wish it was. But one of the main things I've had to learn, like, no one's going to understand you. There's a lot of people who don't even deserve to know you the way you know yourself and your family knows you. You know you put the work in. That's all that matters. You shouldn't let people who have literally no idea what you've been through dictate if it was easy or not. Because you know it wasn't. So I don't really get like that offended when the comments say stuff. I was just amazed the moment I succeeded, everyone wants to hate. And it's mostly just a jealousy thing, in my opinion.
How early are you getting up? What does the routine look like?
Usually, well, before I started work, I just got a new job. I would get up pretty early. I would go to the gym. In prep, I would go to the gym twice a day, and I would lift in the mornings. And then about when it got to nighttime, I would do my cardio. And everything was on a schedule, like eating. You would eat every 2 hours. You'd weigh out all your food. It was not necessarily rough because I'm a huge routine person and I don't like when things are out of my routines.
Have you always been that way? Have you always been routine?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are always like, well, I can never be on a diet like that. And I was like, well, yeah, the diet's the hardest part, but it's generally the most rewarding. If you want to lose weight, it's all in your diet. If you want to put on weight, it's all in your diet. Most of your progress comes from your diet.
Yeah, I've heard it's like 20% is the exercise, 80% is what goes in your mouth.
Right, that's what I was told too.
Yeah. So is your mom helping you do this meal prep?
Yes, I'm so thankful. I'm very thankful we have the financial like status to do this because
it's expensive.
It's so expensive. And especially because I actually had a show in Alabama But 3 days out from the show, they changed the age limit and they were like, no, you can't compete. And I was like, you're telling me I just trained my butt off for a whole year to be denied last minute? And I actually had 2 shows lined up and they weren't going to let me complete. They weren't going to let me slide. You had to be 18. And at the time I was still 16. So I had to fly all the way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for this national show. And there's a major difference between a national show and a little regional show. There was so many people there, and I just honestly just had to stay calm and remind myself that even if I don't win, even if I come in absolutely last place, I worked so hard to get here, and I'm so deserving to be at least in the show itself.
Yeah, so what time would you be in the gym in the morning, typically?
Well, I used to go extremely early in the morning just to avoid like all contact. I would get up at 4 in the morning, and sometimes I still do that, but not as like I don't want anyone to be there. It's just nice to be there when no one's there. You have your own space and then you get the day started. But when I was going through it and I was really insecure, I would get up extremely early or I would go extremely late at night to just avoid all contact. And then the moment you start getting in the hang of things, you stopped caring. Like you kind of want people to see you. Like, look at me doing so good.
Yeah. You're so proud. So how long are you in the gym in the morning? Like how long are you there?
Lifting takes about an hour to 2 hours. And then on prep, I would do about 80 minutes of cardio.
And that would be in the evenings.
Right.
So in the gym, you could be in the gym 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day.
Right.
Depending on what, just, the routine itself, what muscle groups you're working, things like that.
Exactly.
Gotta do the meal prep so you can eat every 2 hours. You're doing virtual school.
Yes, sir.
So you're going through you're getting, staying on top of your schoolwork. At the same time, going to gym twice a day. That takes a great deal of discipline. Did you have to go to bed at a certain hour? And
I would go to bed like extremely early. But now that it's off like the cutting season, I started a bulk, so I really don't have to do cardio as much, but I still go to the gym on top of school, on top of work.
What are you doing for work now?
I work at a Western Outfitter store, Cavender's.
Okay. So just working a register type thing?
Yes, sir.
All right. So how many hours a week do you work that job at Cavender's?
About 20 to 30, really.
So 20 to 30 hours a week on top of your schoolwork. You're also helping your mom, who's in the real estate business, doing some admin work for her.
Right. I asked every Wednesday off to come here with y'all.
That's awesome. And you're still going to the gym every day?
Yes, sir.
But just once a day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you combining the weight training with the cardio at the same gym session?
Not anymore. I don't do cardio since I'm in my bulking season and I'm trying to put on some muscle because Pennsylvania was so expensive. We just decided to take the year off to grow. And then the moment I turn 18, I can compete in any Alabama show I want.
Okay. So how much longer are you in bulking season, or when does the cutting season start?
I guess I would say my birthday's in June, the end of June. So I guess I'd start trying to cut maybe around April or May. Or if I have like a show picked out in mind, I'll probably do about 4 months prior to that show. If I already have one picked out, I'll start trying to lose some weight.
And that's like calorie counting, the whole 9 yards.
Yes, sir.
Macros, micros, all that stuff. But you're eating is your diet restrictive at all right now during the bulking season?
I try to not make it super restrictive. I have a meal plan that my trainer gave to me. And a lot of people will like hear me say this and they'll say like, oh, you just don't have self-control. But going through binge eating disorder, I've realized if I restrict myself too much of foods I love, it's going to lead to a bigger binge. And that's some advice I give everyone trying to lose weight. Don't restrict yourself too much. Still go out every Saturday and eat the foods you love. It's not going to affect your progress that badly. Just get back on track the next day.
So I can go out and eat, like I love chips and salsa. So I can go eat, I can get full eating chips and salsa one day a week if I'm, disciplined and working.
If you're
out the rest of
disciplined and you're in a calorie deficit, it really should not affect you that badly. So I've been doing pretty good with work. I have my routine. I'll bring a lunch to work, my meal prep. But every once in a while, I'll get that craving. It's always sushi. I love sushi.
Yeah, me too.
And sushi is not necessarily like out of all the things I could have eaten for a cheat meal, you can make it at home and make it so much more nutritious for you, or like meet your macros with it. And that's always something I've done. Like all my meal preps are like, they don't even feel like boring. I've always made them like yummier. You know what I mean? So I enjoy eating them every day, and it doesn't feel like such a restrictive diet.
Well, I know I've done some social media stalking on you, and I know like I've come across posts where you really cut out sugar, and you lean a lot on like sugar alternative stuff. A lot of that stuff you can use, and food still tastes good, or maybe even better in some cases.
Right. And it all really depends on your genetics yourself, because I know a lot of girls on my team where they're like 3 days out from a show, and my trainer will be like, okay, go get you a burger. Like it just does more justice for their body. So when I say like, oh yeah, I'm cutting out carbs these 3 days, it's not because carbs are bad. It's simply just because how my body reacts to carbs, and they're not the enemy. So I think that's like a lot of like a big struggle of what I'm trying to get through like people's heads, because they'll see me eat all this food to put on muscle, and they're like, oh, do I need to eat like that to look like you? I'm like, no, not at all. It's just do your research on your body. I always suggest like finding a trainer to give you a meal plan, because they'll get to know you enough where they'll ask you like food you like, food you're allergic to, and they'll give you a meal plan best suited for your body. And that's another big issue, because a lot of girls will DM me on Instagram and they're like, will you please send me like your meal plan? Like I want to look like you. And it's like so hard for me to be like, I don't want to do that, because you don't have to eat like me at all. Like my diet is restrictive compared to what people would say like the normal American diet. And I don't want to be like, no, but I'll always give them like a list of ideas of like, I usually eat something like this, but trust me, like you do not have to eat like me at all. So I made a list in my notes of just like lower calorie foods and like foods I like to eat to help me lose weight or put on muscle. It really just depends on your portion sizes of all those foods. So I started sending that list and be like, here you go, girl. Like, here's a list of foods that helped me a lot. You don't have to eat exactly like me. Here's just a general idea of just some foods that helped me a lot.
Well, you mentioned the word research, and I have that here in my notes. I mean, was self-education a big part of this process? Were you reading articles and watching videos to learn more about like calorie deficits and recipes and all this kind of stuff?
Yes, and I did most of my research like simply just with my trainer. Like I always like to understand how things work. Like, why does she get that amount of food and then I get not as much? And she's like, well, it really just depends on your body, how your body reacts to it. And that's another big part in bodybuilding. I would have never like assumed so. When being backstage, a bunch of the girls in their bags had candies, gummies, Oreos, and everything. And I'm sitting here like, what you doing with that? Like,
Right.
like I wasn't allowed to eat any of that for a year. What do you mean? But then right before you go on stage, you'd eat a piece of candy because it's a fast-acting carb, and the carbs and the sugar make your muscles look bigger. And I didn't know that. So it's basically all just one big science experiment. It's all how your body reacts to food and what foods you're willing to eat and just how it benefits you in general. So that's another thing I've always struggled with. Like, I would see like influencers' diets, and I was like, oh, if I eat like her, I'm going to look like her. Well, it would either make me put on a bunch of weight or lose too much weight, and I just didn't like it. But the moment you invest in yourself and you do research yourself, most of mine I will honestly get from TikTok. I've learned so much. I follow so many gym influencers, none of the BS ones. Like, it's all legit. And I watch their videos as like daily motivation, or I'll learn something new every day from them.
Yeah. Where did this 1 year journey, what was the culmination of it? Did you win any special awards or accolades, or was there any big news that happened?
Well, one of my TikToks actually went viral of just me literally simply explaining what I ate, a couple like of my favorite foods I ate to lose weight. And this company reached out to me, and they were verified on Instagram and everything. They're like, we saw your TikTok. Do you want to be a brand ambassador? And I was like, whoa.
For their products?
Right.
Oh
and
my
they
God.
would send me like free products and stuff if I promoted it. And I just thought that was like the coolest thing. And then it like spiraled from there. And I was like, not only am I helping people, but I'm also like learning so much about this company. And it was a whole company dedicated to like sweet treats that were low calorie and like protein filled. And that's exactly like what I eat. I eat a lot of things that I focus more on like the protein in them and then the sugar amount. And I just thought it was so cool. And I was like, huh. So then the more I realized of just helping people out, it's like more of a greater reward. I feel more rewarded when helping people like that. And I thought that was just one of like the biggest like milestones in one of my journeys, because I realized like, oh, I'm helping people in a way, and I'm promoting something that's gonna help a lot of people in their weight loss journey. And then of course winning my national title at the national show in Pittsburgh. And I realized I was one of the youngest, and I didn't realize I was one of the youngest until I won. And I'm walking off stage, and this lady with this big fat camera gets all in my face, and she was like, "Are you the youngest? Are you McKenzie Richards?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Come here, sister, we're interviewing you." And I was like, and I just like panicked. But it was one of the like coolest moments of my life to be interviewed. Like, people want to talk to me about my accomplishments. No one's ever like listened to me and listened to like my body and like my thoughts on all this, which I thought was so cool when she wanted to interview me.
Oh, it's so huge. I'm wondering if it sounds like maybe you're discovering a why, like what your purpose is maybe on this planet. I mean, do you think there is a future in this? Are you starting to kind of see like, hey, maybe I could make a living at this, or this is something I want to do as a career? Is any of that stuff forming in your mind right now?
Most definitely. I truly want to do this long term, and I've been wanting to get into real estate. And I thought with like my social media campaigns, like a real estate agent who's also really big into fitness, I thought that would be pretty cool and make a name for myself that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like who knows where it could go. I mean, more as you grow more in the sport, more companies could reach out to you, and there could be sponsorship opportunities, and all kind of things could come from this. But you also, we can't, gloss over the fact that there's this big role model component to it, and you're really helping. I mean, people are reaching out to you for help.
Right. And I think one of the craziest things is that these companies will reach out to me, and I've actually had some sponsorship emails come my way, because apparently I did not know a bunch of people who do the sponsorships will go to these big bodybuilding shows, and they it's like a football recruitment. They like they look at everyone and they see who's doing really good. And I guess just me being so young, and at the time when this show came around, I just turned 17 at that moment. I was only 17 for a month going on stage. So I didn't realize I was one of the youngest until all of my emails and my DMs were getting absolutely flooded after this show. And it's so crazy because they don't even know my backstory. They just look at me and they're like, "Oh, she's so young. I want to put up my money into her and she's going to take it a long way." But people don't see everything I've been through. And I feel like it's not like a story I just go around and tell everyone. But when you get to know me and you do understand, like, I have this story, I feel like it's kind of like, whoa, I didn't know that. Like, that's so much cooler than the fact that, like, you won this title. How you got there is just so much more fascinating in my book.
Yeah. To me, there's a great irony here. Like, people are like, oh, well, she's genetically predisposed to look like that. But the lack of genetics is a big part of what motivated you to get on this, what we're calling the gaining confidence journey. It was like, hey, I don't have the genetics. I can't eat Oreos every day and still be skinny. I got to go out and work for it. And because I got to go out and work for it, it means that much more to me. And I think that's what makes it really, really special. But people are assuming now, like, oh, she was born with a great metabolism. But, that's not the case.
Right, because my metabolism ended up shutting down. And I realized it's from not eating as much. The more you eat nutritious foods, the more your metabolism sped up. And it got to the point where every day I only ate half a Chick-fil-A sandwich. And that's like how little I was eating on top of doing the excessive amounts of cardio. So it's just been a massive journey realizing the more nutritious food you eat, the better you're going to feel, the more it's going to do for your body. Like, you can eat more of the right foods and it's going to do so much more justice than if you were to just eat one meal a day.
Oh my God. I can't imagine what that did to your, like the physiology of your body. I mean, eating a half of a Chick-fil-A sandwich, that's all you ate in an entire day?
An entire day.
Plus all this exercise.
Right. I was so tired, and on top of having like other health issues, I actually have a brain disease as well. And when I would eat that little and I was just so tired from all the exercise, it was just a constant migraine. My blood sugar was always low. I just felt terrible. So when realizing the more you eat, it's life-changing to realize, like, when you clean up your diet just a little bit, and it doesn't even have to be anything dramatic. You can literally just, okay, maybe I'll switch from diet sodas. Well, you're not drinking all the calories, and calories aren't bad for you as well, but when you just start making simple changes, it makes a massive difference. Or I'm going to start incorporating more greens into my diet. It makes a difference. You don't even have to cut out any of your favorite foods. It can just be remade into cleaner ingredients.
Yeah. So what, health-wise, how are you doing now?
Really good. I've been working hard to eat more on my bulk. I'm feeling really good. Everything's like piecing together now.
Well, are you comfortable inviting people to follow you on this journey on social?
Most definitely.
And what's your Instagram handle, and how do they find you on TikTok?
Mostly, I've had a couple of my TikToks actually go pretty viral with a couple million views. So they'll either find me on like my For You page, or in my Instagram's also linked in my TikTok, and I put my Snapchat in my bio. So sometimes people will add me on Snap and they'll reach out to me that way. And I have like a whole private story dedicated to like my meal preps, and I'll post like what workouts I did that day or meal preps, and I'll put like how much I ate of that, just because people are very fascinated by that. Yeah. And I feel like the more they look at it every day of like what I'm eating and what I'm doing, a lot of people say like, you've motivated me enough. Like, seeing it every day, I've made the change. And that's another thing that impacted me so much. The more people I followed that I want to do what they do, the more you see it every day, the more you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to go make a change.
Well, and like there's a great deal of accountability. You have this following now that, you know, is expecting you to stay on this path of discipline, on this journey of confidence, to keep moving forward, because you've really only probably just scratched the surface of your potential.
Right.
So you don't want to let them down. You're like, well, if I revert back to my old ways, I might send somebody else on a downward spiral.
Right. But at the same time, I do like being very honest with like the following I have. So if I'm having a bad day, I'm very honest about that. I don't expect my every day of mine to be perfect. There are some days where I absolutely want to binge, and then there's some days where I don't want to eat at all. But looking back on it, it's like, I don't want to feel those things again. So that's motivation. I never lie. I never want to like set unrealistic standards of my life to other people, because it's totally fine to have bad days. And there's some days where you don't want to eat, but because I know a lot of my friends struggle with that, and I've always helped them like, but food is so good for you. I promise you'll feel so much better if you eat than if you weren't to eat.
Well, what do I type into TikTok to find you? Is it KENZIE, or what's the rest of the handle? Do you know it?
McKenzie Richards 23.
McKenzie Richards 23.
Yes, sir.
So that's how we can find you, and then from your TikTok profile, we can find your Snap and your Instagram and all that stuff.
Yes, sir.
And you know, you try to answer every DM, and
I do answer every DM.
Nasty, right?
As long as it's not nasty. I've had a couple of them, but they're always like burner accounts, so they always like are not there to be found when I say something back to them. But I do answer mostly all my DMs with people who have questions.
Well, I really appreciate you making time to not only share your story. I know it's difficult to share, you know, and to be so open and so transparent about what you're going through, but I also just appreciate like your age and how a lot of the things you've mentioned in this interview, I'm still wrestling with in this training room, trying to get people, you know, 2 and 3 times your age to like get into a routine.
Right.
Like that's going to serve you so well in your real estate career. or whatever it is you decide to go into, because routines, they just make everything easier. But we've got this analogy I use all the time, whether you want to be the wind or the flag, and you are definitely the wind. You know, the flag is at the mercy of the wind. I noticed
that in your meeting today. It caught my attention. I was like, that's such a good analogy. Be the wind, not the flag.
And the first step, I feel like, is developing a powerful routine that serves you and your goals. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I think this could really impact people. So
I'm really hoping so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Impact Agent Podcast. If you liked the show and got something out of it, please like the Impact Agent Podcast on Facebook and rate and review the show on iTunes or anywhere you listen to podcasts. This really helps us grow the show and helps other agents find it. Please share it with your friends and coworkers as well. Want us to deliver the show to you via email every week? Then email me at jason@impactagentuniversity.com and we'll send you the show every week. Please let us know what you think about the show, what you like, what you don't, or possibly make a suggestion about a topic you want to hear. Email me at jason@impactagentuniversity.com or leave us a message on Facebook at Impact Agent Podcast. Until next week, everybody be productive, safe, and happy, and always keep learning. This podcast is produced by Johnny Gwynn at Deep Fried Studios in Mobile, Alabama, and is paid for and powered by ImpactAgentUniversity.com.